Guys, welcome back to Cozy Time Corner. I brought a new fuzzy friend. This is Octi, my octopus. He wanted to join in on the fun today too. So let's get right to it. Where did we leave off? Oh yes, the kids were questioning whether Howie and Hannah had anything to do with this, whether they sent the postcards to Auntie A about selling the house. And the last thing we wondered was, why did the burglars come and only take a diary and some letters? Why didn't they take anything valuable like the moon rocks? So let's get back into it. Chapter 7, and we'll find out what happens next. Dink opened his eyes. Something had awakened him. He tried to see around him, but the bunkhouse was dark. It was quiet outside. Even the crickets had stopped making their night sounds. Then Dink heard something creak. He sat up and he looked toward the door. Dink knew the hinges squeaked when the screen door opened and closed, but who would be opening it in the middle of the night? And Dink was almost certain that Josh had latched the door before climbing into his bunk. But he wasn't 100% positive. So he threw off his blanket and climbed down the bunk's ladder. Josh was snoring. As Dink's feet reached the floor, he smelled mosquito repellent. But it didn't have a pine scent like Ruth Rose's. This was stronger and familiar. Praying that he wouldn't step on a scorpion, Dink walked to the door and peered out. He saw a few stars, but the moon was behind some clouds. The air was warm and damp. Flying insects bumped into the screen. Dink ran his hand across the wooden frame of the screen door, feeling for the hook and eye latch. His fingers found the hook, but it was hanging loose. It wasn't latched. He stood there for a minute, trying to remember what Josh had said last night. Something about locking the door to keep the wild critters out. So if Josh had latched the door, why was it now not latched? Dink dropped the hook into the round little eye and pushed the door to make sure it wouldn't open. Dink tiptoed back to the bunk bed and climbed the ladder. He shivered and pulled his blankets up under his chin. Closing his eyes, he convinced himself that no animal had come into the bunkhouse. But who had unlatched the door? Sunlight coming through the window shone in Dink's eyes, waking him. He blinked, yawned, and sat up. He looked at the pond and some palm trees through the window. Then he glanced around the bunkhouse. Below him, Josh was a lump under a blanket with one foot sticking out, dangling over the floor. Dink smiled. Josh had taken his shoes off, but had slept in his socks. Across the room, Ruth Rose was also snuggled beneath her covers. No bears, wolves, or mountain lions were there, unless they were hiding in the bathroom. He checked his watch. It was 7:30. Yawning, he reached for the magazine Auntie A had left him. He read part of an article about how the earth was getting warmer. He read about scientists trying to turn algae into fuel. Auntie A's husband had written to scientists about a similar idea. Dink looked up at the ceiling. Maybe Barney Wallace was onto something. Dink's stomach growled. He dropped the magazine, wondering what they'd be having for breakfast. He pulled his toothbrush and toothpaste from his backpack and climbed down the ladder. The wood floor felt cool on his bare feet. I should have kept my socks on, too, he thought. He took a step toward the bathroom, then froze. 10 inches from Josh's foot, a snake was curled up between Dink's sneakers. Dink backed up, bumped Josh's bed. "What are you doing?" Josh mumbled. "There's a snake on the floor," Dink whispered. "Don't move." There it is, right between his shoes. Josh snorted. "Don't play games, James," he said. Dink climbed halfway up his ladder. "I'm not," he said. "Take a look and you'll see it, about a foot from your bunk." Josh peeked out from his blanket and gasped. "What's going on?" Ruth Rose said suddenly. She was sitting up, rubbing her eyes. "Don't get out of bed," Dink said. "There's a snake on the floor by my sneakers." "Oh my gosh," Ruth Rose cried. "What's it doing there?" "I don't know," Dink said. "How did it get in here?" Josh said. Only his eyes and nose were visible from under his blanket. "Josh, did you lock the screen door last night?" Dink asked. "Yep," Josh said. "Why?" "Because I got up during the night and the door wasn't latched." Josh moaned. "It's not moving," Ruth Rose said. "Maybe it's a fake snake." "Nope. I just saw its little tongue come out," Josh said. "It's real." "Guys, it has red, yellow, and black bands," Ruth Rose said. "It's a poisonous coral snake." The 3 kids watched the snake. but it wasn't doing anything. It lay curled up with its head resting on the toe of Dink's sneaker. Every few seconds, a thin tongue shot out of its mouth. It had tiny eyes, which didn't blink. "We need a plan," Ruth Rose said. "I have a plan," Josh said. "Strap me in the space shuttle and shoot me up to the moon. I'll hang out with Blinky." "We'll be fine as long as we stay in bed," Dink said. "I don't think snakes can jump. Dude, if this snake unlocked the door, it can climb into my bunk," Josh said. "I have an idea," Ruth Rose said. She stretched one foot out from under her blanket. Using her toes, she dragged the wire trash basket to the side of her bed. She sat up and grabbed the basket. "What are you doing?" Josh hissed. Ruth Rose tiptoed across the room and quickly dropped the wastebasket over the snake and Dink's sneakers. The snake moved, but too late. It was a prisoner inside the basket's wire mesh. There they go. They trapped it in the trash can. "Now it can't get us," Ruth Rose announced. "And I can't get my sneakers," Dink said. Josh giggled. "Snakes love bare feet, Pete," he said. "Thanks, Ruth Rose. You're a rock star." Dink climbed back down the ladder. He knelt to get a good look at the snake. "It's kind of pretty," Dink said. "I like its little red face." "What should we do with it?" Ruth Rose asked. Dink thought for a minute. "Hey, remember when Kenny was driving us here and we passed Snake World?" he asked. "We could bring the snake over there." "Great idea," Josh said. "You take the snake while I eat a pancake." Chapter 6. After dressing in shorts and t-shirts, the kids brushed their teeth and left the bunkhouse. The snake seemed to be sleeping. Dink stopped to look at the hook and eye latch hanging on the screen door frame. When he ran his fingers over the screen, he noticed something else. He got down on his knees to see if a snake could fit under the door. The space between the door and the floor was less than the thickness of his finger. Dink didn't think the snake could have squeezed through there. Besides, he'd heard the hinges creak, which meant the screen door had opened. A snake couldn't unlatch and open a door. The kids went to the house for breakfast. They told Wallace and her aunt about the snake. "Goodness," Auntie Alice said. "I've never seen a snake near the house or bunkhouse. Then suddenly 2 in a row show up?" Dink said he thought they should call Snake World. Wallace pulled her cell phone from a pocket. "They must have a website," she said. "Good," Alice said. "I want that critter gone before Howie brings his kids over." Wallace found and tapped the number. "It's ringing. I'm putting it on speaker so you can hear," she told her aunt and the 3 kids. "Snake World," a man's voice said. "Hello, I'm calling from Alice Wallace's house," Wallace said. "We're just down the road. We found a coral snake on the property this morning, and we don't know what to do with it." "How do you know it's a coral snake?" the man asked. "It has red, yellow, and black bands around its body," Wallace said. The phone was quiet for a few seconds. Then the man said, "What color is the snake's head?" Wallace looked at the kids and raised her eyebrows. "Red," Dink said. "Well, that's good news," the man said. "Coral snakes have black heads. What you have is most likely a scarlet king snake. They resemble coral snakes, but they're totally harmless. Tell you what, I'll come over and have a look. 10 minutes, okay?" "That would be great," Wallace said. 53 Palm Lane. It's the White House with black shutters." While they finished breakfast, Ruth Rose opened her guidebook to the section about Florida wildlife. She quickly found pictures of coral snakes and the scarlet king snake. Side by side, they looked almost alike, but the coral snake's red and yellow bands touched each other, and the scarlet king snake had a red head. She turned the book so everyone could see the page. "Good," Dink said. "I can get my sneakers back." A horn tooted. They all went outside, where a truck sat in the driveway. Snake World was printed on the door. A guy in jeans and a Snake World t-shirt stepped out. "I'm Jake," the man said. "Heard you folks got yourself a visitor." Ruth Rose showed him the picture of his scarlet king snake. "We think it's this one," she said. "Hope you're right," Jake said. He pulled a cloth sack from his back pocket and put on a pair of thick gloves. Jake followed the kids, Wallace and Alice, to the bunkhouse. They crowded around the overturned wastebasket. Jake got down on his knees and handed each kid a pair of gloves. Dink slipped the gloves over his hands and waited. "Lift the basket," Jake said quietly. Dink pulled the basket away, and Jake grabbed the snake. He held it on his knee while stroking the shiny scales on its back. Definitely not a coral snake, he said, pointing to the red face and head. Coral snakes and scarlet king snakes both have red, yellow, and black markings. People confuse them all the time, but the three colors are arranged differently. Here's a rhyme to help you remember which is which. If red touches yellow, he's a dangerous fellow. If red touches black, you're safe, Jack. Cool, Josh said. You're a poet. Notice how this snake's red bands touch the black bands, but not the yellow ones, Jake went on. Can I hold it, Ruth Rose asked. Sure, Jake said. Support its neck with one hand and put the other under its belly. He gently placed the snake in Ruth Rose's hand. How does it feel? There you go. He was giving it to Ruth Rose. Amazing, Ruth Rose whispered, all smooth and shiny. Dink ran a finger down the snake's side. I can feel its muscles moving inside, he said. Want to touch it, Josh? No. Maybe. Okay. Josh put a finger on the snake's skin. Nice snake, Jake, he said. Jake laughed and slid the snake into the bag. If y'all want to come by Snake World, I can show you a coral snake up close, he said, but you won't have to touch it. Maybe we'll do that before we leave, Wallace said. But I have an idea these kids want to go into outer space today, right? Right, the three kids yelled. And that's the end of Chapter 8. So tomorrow, we'll do Chapter 9. All right, have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.